This is the second day of the Invtur 2021 International Conference. Let me welcome you all. This is our second day. And what we are going to do is we are going to start with a plenary session this morning with 5 brilliant keynote speakers. I'm surrounded by very nice people and very influent people in the tourism area. Let me start also by saying that yesterday it was our first day. The first day was rather nice. In the morning, we also had 5 keynote speakers. And then in the afternoon, we had a number of parallel sessions. And we were really surprised because the sessions were completely crowded. So they were a major success. And we do believe that today in the afternoon, don't forget, in the afternoon, we have parallel sessions and you can get all the links from the website. The program is there, it is available, and therefore you can pick up, the program, the links, and you can choose from a wide variety of parallel sessions. So let's start this morning session. Let me start by saying that we are going to have, again, 5 very nice keynote speakers. We are going to start with Dimitris Bouhalis, and then we are going to have Sara Dolnikar, Tanya, Dayanand, and Zelia Breda. The 5 will be here this morning. I'm going to start with Dimitris Bouhalis, and I have to introduce Dimitris, and it's very easy for me to introduce Dimitris because, first of all, he's a brilliant academic, and then second, he's a very nice friend. And we don't need to introduce him because he's known worldwide. He has been in many, many countries, more than the Pope has been, I'm sure about that, and therefore is a well-known person. So, Dimitris is one of the most cited academics in tourism. His scientific contribution to tourism is already long and enormous. I would say that Dimitris is an academic globetrotter, no doubts about it. He is known and recognized almost at every single country in the world. And one of the things that I really appreciate in Dimitris is the fact that he's very serious from an academic point of view, but he's not a boring academic. He's a very lively person, a very funny person, and always with a very smile on his face. And we also would like to say that Dimitris is a very good friend of mine. He's a very good friend of Aveiro, and we have been working together for 30 years. And for this project, for the Invtur, for the last 10 years, and I am sure that we still have many years to go ahead in many common projects. So, Dimitris, you can start. The virtual floor is yours, and make it use as the way you want. Thank you very much indeed.
Obrigadísimo, Carlos. Bom dia, alegria para todos. Great pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Carlos. I wish my mother was still alive and could hear that, and I'll pay you later for everything you said.
Don't promise that. Don't forget that.
No, I cannot wait for the international travel to start again so I can come and see you guys in Portugal and enjoy some of the wonderful things that we're doing every time we come together. Let me share my screen and go through a presentation. I don't need to go through the presentation, but I think that will give us a few things to look at. I think you can see my presentation, right? Yeah. So when I gave you a title, I talked about COVID and smart tourism, but yesterday we had so much COVID stuff. And everything that we talk about is COVID. And I haven't been on a plane for a year and 2 months now because of COVID. So I'm kind of had enough of COVID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the British Airways advertisement that came up yesterday. And it is exactly my feeling. You make us fly. And I know that colleagues in India, I know colleagues in Brazil are having a particularly bad time right now. But actually, we need to see the end of COVID, and we need to tackle COVID, and we need to go to the next stage. I think the international experience already knows how to deal with that. But it's really politics and it's really the human element that need to actually teach us how to do these things and go to the next stage. Let me show you this film because I like to bring some optimism to your feelings this morning. So let's see how I can do this. I can go back to share screen, but then I'll pick up this one and
Good morning, this is your captain speaking.
Let me start again.
Good morning, this is your captain speaking.
Here we go.
Something that makes us fly. For us, it's you.
So that's my message of optimism, and that is my message of find what makes you fly. And we need somehow slowly and carefully to start again this industry, and because we've got too many people waiting for us. We've got consumers waiting for us. We've got local communities and residents waiting for us. We've got people that they really depend on tourism to make sure that we can progress and make sure that to the tourism industry is bringing the benefits that they require for their livelihood. So in the last year and a half, during lockdown, one of the things that came out was the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing, and many of you have contributed to that. So I've spent a year basically doing that, plus the tourism review, obviously. But one of the things that came out on the encyclopedia, it gave me an opportunity to rethink tourism and how tourism is actually getting together. And one of the main things that came in the encyclopedia was the pyramid. And the pyramid, we've always talked about the tourism system from Neil Lippier, where the tourism system is on the top. You've got the generating region, you've got the tourism destination region, you've got the transit region. We're trying to bring these people that have got all kinds of needs and wants to come to our destinations and enjoy our services and our experience and our activities and our accessibility and our ancillary services and everything else. And of course, technology is right in the middle with transportation and everything else on the transit region. What the tourism system is doing is taking resources in to create value for all the stakeholders. So when you're doing a project like the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing, you really need to actually position all of those things in different places. But then what becomes apparent is that the tourism system is sitting on top of the pyramid, and we really need to do everything well on the pyramid in order for that to work together. So here you've got planning, management, and marketing, where you've got inbound tourism and outbound tourism, and all the things that you really need to look after. Here you've got the market forces and what the market is requiring for us to do. Here you've got the exogenous variables and all the different things that our external environment is bringing to us. And then you've got the technology and the infrastructure that enable everything to plug and play so it can operate in a nice way. So I think if we didn't have that kind of period of reflection, if you like, on what tourism is happening, all of this thinking will not come forward. But I think it's really critical that people understand how the tourism industry and how the tourism system needs to operate, particularly now where we are kind of rebuild a broken system and we're trying to redevelop a broken system. I hear a lot of people talking about things like people will travel less, will have more sustainability, will have a reduction of traveling. I think it's a lot of these things are wishful thinking. The evidence does not show that. Actually, what's going to happen is probably revenge travel. People will travel twice because what's happening is that they would desperately want to recover some of the traveling periods. They would like to see their loved ones. They would like to engage with people around the world that they haven't managed to engage for the last year. So I cannot wait to be able to travel again and come to Portugal and go to other places and catch up with friends and catch up with life, really. I think destinations need to start rethinking what do they do. And this is not a new slide. This is something I've done more than 20 years ago, looking into what's the destination strategies. And the destination strategies are about creating competitive advantage through differentiation, enhancing the reputation and maintaining the destination image, nurturing the new business models, and optimize the resources they are using. And it's critical that we really need to look into resident benefits. And it's critical that we bring benefits to consumers where the consumers are, but also to all the other people that they are there. And I'm sure that Tanya will talk about over-tourism in a minute because she has done a very good paper in Tourism Review. But this is really when residents do not find the benefits, then they start complaining. It's really about how can we bring benefits to residents. Hello, Sarah, welcome. And when we're talking about smartness, we're talking about optimizing the network. And we're talking about taking advantage of interoperability and interconnectivity of integrated technologies to re-engineer process and data in order to produce innovative services, products, and procedures towards maximizing value for all stakeholders. If there's one thing that COVID taught us is how interconnected and interrelated we are globally. One of the key things is how can we operate the system together, and that's why I'm taking you back to the pyramid, that the system operates together on a global scale. So if something happens somewhere, it has got a major effect everywhere else. We've seen that with COVID, and we keep seeing that because until everything is safe, it will not be safe for people to travel. But smartness enables enables sharing and shaping products, actions, processes, and services in real time to engage with stakeholders and to optimize the output and take through the system and optimize the output. There are a lot of techniques in there, that there are a lot of digital services and big data, they're all coming together, and they need to coordinate it as a network. This is the critical bit of smartness, because a lot of people are talking about smartness, but they talk about technology really and evolution. Smartness and agility is revolutionary in the sense that is optimizing the network, the entire network through interoperability and interconnectivity. It's about how the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything is co-creating value for everybody who is in there. You've got sensors that are collecting data, you've got big data, you have analytics that you're analyzing them, and then you are then creating value based on that. So smartness is not about automation and technology. It's not about digitization, evolution, social media, and reservations. It's all of these things together. And it's effectively the glue of interoperable and interconnected networks and systems that they are mutually beneficial. It looks about real-time, dynamic, and adaptive systems that they're providing customized, individualized, and contextualized solutions and value for each market segment. And it's really critical to understand that, and I see Sarah here who has done a lot of work on segmentation, but we used to kind of divide the market and trying to develop things that people will address the market. increasingly what's happening is that the market is moving so fast. So people do not expect segmentations, but they expect to be given the tools to be able to create value on their circumstances, in their context, in that particular moment. And smartness is actually doing that by giving them the tools to engage with all the resources. Smartness is not only about technology, it brings people together and all the knowledge management and all the human capital, and brings leadership. Leadership is the most critical element of smartness, because leadership will enable us to go to the next stage through policies, governance, change management. And what happens is that we bring economic actors, social actors, and technological actors together in the value co-creation ecosystem. And that creates a range of innovations that are happening at the destination level, where you've got smart mobility, smart governance, smart economy, smart people, smart living, and smart environments. Eventually, what happens is that you've got a range of enabling technologies that are bringing innovations into the marketplace. And the marketplace, you've got the supply on the one side, the customers on the other side. And what happens here is that you've got virtual reality, augmented reality, location-based service, autonomous devices, and all the bits that are coming together to help consumers and industry to meet and create this magic kind of experiences. And the range of technologies are there, but technologies are moving all the time. Technologies keep changing and they are moving different things. But the important thing is that we bring customers, firms, and the environment together to actually co-create that value. And the value co-creation is based on personalization, we said contextualization, that drives co-creation of experiences and drives instant gratification. This is really, really important. Now, when you see a place like Barcelona, you've got different layers. You've got the environment, you've got the infrastructure in terms of technology, water, energy, matters, mobility, nature. Then you've got the city scale and the public and private domains. Then you've got the infrastructure and the public and social services and the open governance. All of those things need to work together in order to be able to operate the destination as a smart destination, in order to be able to provide services for the destination. And when you have a destination, let's take Aveiro as an example where it is hosting us, you see a range of different players and you see a range of different stakeholders, from the fishing guys to the people who are creating the salt, to the people who are creating tourism services, to the people that they are operating the moliceros on the Ria, and the people that they're doing the cataplanas and in the local restaurants. And what smartness is really bring the territory together in a clever way that actually brings value to all the residents. And you may say that the Yavu is doing one thing, it may be kept for, I don't know, going cycling in the beautiful kind of lanes, but you may find that this bit is kind of doing a different bit, a different kind of tourism. And the trick is to bring all of those things together. So how you bring them together is you're collecting input data from wherever the data are, and you bring data storage and data treatment. So you're analyzing data through data mining, and you're trying to understand what's happening, why is it happening, what is likely to happen, and what can be done about it towards co-creating value. And then this is a loop that goes around. And the beautiful thing of what we do is that this thing needs to be very interactive and engaging in different ways. Now, back to the segmentation question, what we see is that there are different types of people that they operate with technology in different ways. So this is a paper we've done with Daisy Fund, where we are looking to how consumers interact when they travel around. So you've got the people who are doing face-to-face. Actually, when you're looking to what is the interaction, you see that there are some face-to-face social contacts with local residents, service personnel, DMOs, other travelers, peer travelers, the people that they travel with you. And also you see a whole range of different things on online social contacts that people are connecting when they're away. So if I'm somewhere and I see something nice, I might take a picture and send it to Carlos and say, look, Carlos, I'm here. First of all, you need to be jealous because you are not here, but also I'm gonna like to share this experience with you and engage with you. But then when you look into the customers, there are some typologies that there are different market segments based on their ability to interact digitally when they are traveling. So we've done this typology of 6 different segments, if you like, from what we call from home zone to away zone. And these guys who are on the home zone are those who are connected and they're using all kinds of technology to stay connected and stay in control in what's happening back home. To all of these guys on the other side that they're digitally disconnected and they're doing digital detox. There are people that they're, last time I was in Vietnam with Bob McCarthy, and when we were on the bus, he was sitting next to me. I was controlling where we were on the map and when we're gonna go and what we're gonna see. And Bob said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm checking where we're going and what we're gonna see and how we're gonna have a good experience." And he said, "Wow, you're so different than me because I've locked my mobile phone in my hotel room 6 days ago and I haven't touched it." So obviously I was somewhere here. Actually, I'm on dual zone because I'm doing both. And Bob was detoxing, so he was there. You need to understand where consumers are to be able to understand how they are operating. The other critical things, you really need to understand what is the big data and how the big data can help us create smartness. And this is research that we've done to map the big data that we're using in tourism and hospitality and create a structure that explaining how we can operate on the big data. And what we do eventually is we create personal encounters by bringing supply side. So here you've got the employers and you've got the companies creating value through their employees. On the other side, you've got the consumers that are coming here, and we're trying to understand how we can improve the personal encounter through personalized experience and real-time, using real-time information updates. And this is the real-time information updates is coming from a network of different players. And this is a research we've done with Filipa and Carlos, and looking into who are the people in the territory that they are creating innovations. And this Sonaveiro, it's based on Filipa's PhD, looking to how the different institutions can help the system to create innovations and engage different kind of players in there. And it's really critical to understand how all of those players are coming together for the co-creation of value. And the co-creation of value is happening before the travel, during the travel, and after the travel. So before the travel, it's all about information that consumers may need. During the travel, it's all about real-time information. You'll see that in a minute. And then after the travel, it's kind of how do we manage memories and how to engage with different kind of players. So the system operates like that. You've got data and you've got information that's coming up on the cloud. And if you get all the information of everybody at all times, and you start looking to all this information, this big data, and you analyze the big data, then you can create value by using value aggregators and then bring them as a storm of value to consumers and all the other stakeholders and see what happens and see what's the interactions and what's the impact. And that creates more data that comes back to the tourism supply and then goes on the cloud and keeps going around. The beauty of this is that you can have corrective actions, or you can engage with different stakeholders in near real time. So in the past, you'll do something, you'll do an experiment, you'll put an offer in the marketplace, and you'll wait for about 3-5 months, a year to actually see what's the impact of these things. Increasingly, what we do is we can see what is the impact of an action in minutes, because we can put a package together, we can put an offer together, and we can see what people will do with this. And if it's working, then we'll see how we can make it better. If it doesn't work, we can change and we can move things forward. The whole thing is about the interactivity of the different players, from tourists and citizens, organizations, clusters, smart city, government, and global. And increasingly, those things will take a lot of time to create that level of analysis and engagement, but now it takes minutes. Now, I'd like to bring a few things together and conclude really. So this is the context factors. This is the internal context, which is about the individual, what's the likes, dislikes, emotional status, abilities, disabilities, topics of interest, and this is the external factors, where you've got decision, the political situation, location, emergent strikes, weather, delays, pressure, traffic, and things like that. This was done 2 or 3 years ago. If I was to write it now, I'll put a big thing on top that would say pandemics, obviously, because the pandemic is the biggest thing that has influenced the world in the last year. But this is when we bring SOCOMO, and SOCOMO is the social media context-based and mobile situation where you're bringing consumers on the one side and travelers on the other side to interact in the marketplace based on the internal and the external context. And increasingly what we have is something that I describe as nowness. And nowness is really about understanding what's happening now in a particular place based on location-based services, mentions, hashtags, sentiment analysis, trending, keywords tracking, competitors and what competitors are doing. All of those things are synthesizing what's happening now in the context at the destination. And that brings us into value co-creation that is data-driven, it's consumer-centric, experience-enhancing, real-time co-creation. And that creates a third pillar of competitive advantage, which is based on instant gratification. We always had price and differentiation from Porter strategy. But now what we bring is an element of instant gratification where time is the most critical element of value co-creation. And there's a framework here that brings all this ecosystem together, from real-time triggers, what triggers a difference, to understanding the contextual relevance of that trigger, then going through the nowness and create enablers to actually manage value and see what value is being co-created. And the last thing is the ambient intelligence. And the ambient intelligence are bringing different kind of smart systems in our life it's propelled from interconnectivity and interoperability of the systems, and increasingly hardware and devices like vehicles through the Internet of Everything. So technological developments will include artificial intelligence and machine learning, ambient connectivity through wide area, Wi-Fi and 5G and 6G and whatever it's coming afterwards, where everything is being connected with autonomous vehicles, robotics and everything, to actually maximize the benefits that they are bringing to the destinations. Ambient intelligence requires mobile technologies that are pervasive and ambient. So they're ubiquitous, they're interactive, they're interoperable, distributed and scalable, and they provide value and services to absolutely everybody who is in the ecosystem. And eventually we're gonna get to a situation like that with everything being connected in the environment and facilitate human-to-human interaction from business to governments, employers, and consumers, interest groups, and local residents, and increasingly machine-to-machine interaction. So when your machine is talking to my machine without human interaction, by looking to the range of different things that are happening in our environment, then what we'll do is the information that is fetched on your machine will co-create value for you without you actually. So this is a very complicated kind of process that will enable everybody to interact in seconds and everybody to be part of this big ecosystem that's co-creating value. And ultimately what you have is you've got the different kind of stakeholders that are using all kinds of technologies within the ambient intelligent framework to maximize the value of everybody. Now, when I talk about these things, people are thinking that I'm talking about the future, something that's going to happen in a very long time in the future. But this just before the lockdown, me being in Hangzhou in the New Century Grand Hotel and talking to my friend here who was about to go onto the elevator, and eventually we became friends because he was speaking very good English. It was a he, there's a she somewhere else in another hotel. And this tireless worker was kind of giving all kind of services to consumers. So it's here, it's not something that's happening in the future. Lots of research have given into the things I talked about, and obviously I don't have the time to talk about everything. Here's a very long list of publications that can help you. And the next book that's coming out is Gamification for Tourism. It's probably going to be out in about a month's time, where we're looking into how you can take advantage of those things in the interoperable systems and gamify the tourism experience. Thank you very much. Obrigadissimo.
So, obrigadissimo, Dimitrios. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation. It was, of course, a brilliant presentation, as they are always. Smart tourism is important. Smart tourism is to be important, and nowadays with COVID, it has increased, of course, its importance. Without technology, today we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be communicating with each other. So, Dimitrios, thank you very much indeed. Let's move to the second presentation. We are going to have with us Sara Dolnikar. Good morning, Sara. So let me just say a few words about Sara. Sara is a social scientist and research professor of tourism at the University of Queensland in Australia. With the degrees in business and psychology, she is best known for her work in improving market segmentation methodology and empirical measures in social science research. She is also an expert in the topic of Airbnb, and currently Sara is focusing on developing and experimentally testing ways to make consumers behave in a more environmentally friendly ways. Sara has published more than 300 refereed articles, which have been cited more than 70,000 times. She is also known because she is editor-in-chief of Annals of Tourism Research and reviews grant applications for the national funding bodies of more than a dozen countries around the world. She is an elected fellow of numerous professional associations and winner of more than 30 research awards. So, Sara, again, thank you very much for coming, for joining us, and the virtual stage is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Let me see if I can make this virtual stage work. All right, is that okay? You can hear me, you can see me.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes, it's brilliant. Thank you very much.
All right, good. So I was truly inspired by the conference theme, and I thought, how good is that? Sustainable development goals. That's actually something that's really close to my heart now, because it's just a beautiful framework to guide our work. So today I'd like to talk to you about using field experimentation to contribute to the UN Sustainable Development Goals in tourism. So 2 questions: why field experimentation, and why the UN Sustainable Development Goals? First question, why field experimentation? There's 2 good reasons, and I will elaborate on them because we still don't do much field experimentation in the field of tourism, and I do believe we should be doing more, despite the fact that it's hard work and takes a lot of time and can be expensive. So reason number 1 is causality, and that relates strongly to research design. So here the question is, how do we set up a study that it enables us to actually draw valid conclusions about what is affecting what? So if we look at the kinds of knowledge we can create, there's basically 3 fundamental kinds of knowledge. One is first order knowledge or concepts. So what we are investigating here is individual concepts, not the link between them, but each one individually. And we ask ourselves, what is this concept? And usually what we do is we describe it, we think about it, we analyze it. Next level, second order knowledge, and that's associations. So here it's not about the individual concept, but we are starting to build connections. We are starting to try to associate whether they move together in some particular way. We ask, are these concepts associated with one another, or if you want to say statistically, are they correlated with one another? What we will typically do for that kind of knowledge development is we will run one-off cross-sectional survey studies, and immediately you see the problem, right? If I ask the questions about the three concepts at the same point in time, I can never draw conclusions about which one of those concepts has affected another one. So we can say it's associated, they're moving together, but we can't say which one is driving which other one. To do that, we need to move on to third order knowledge or principles. So here what we do is we have a starting point and we have a desired endpoint. And so we can try to do something in the middle. We can develop interventions in an attempt to change status A to a desired status B. So what do we ask here? We ask, what is this desired state caused by? What do we need to do to change something? And here is where the experiment comes into play. And only the experiment, right? So if we have data that is a one-off cross-sectional survey study, we can't actually, no matter what analysis we do, we can never make it causal. Except, of course, if we have a survey experiment, right? Where some intervention happens in the middle. So we want to know what is caused by something. Why do we want to know that? Well, because we want to change the world, right? We want to work towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we want to go out there and tell destination managers, hotel managers, we want to say, do this, change this in order to operate in more sustainable ways. Now, if we look how knowledge is distributed currently, it's like this. So we have 6% first order knowledge, we have 7% principles, and the vast, vast majority of what we do is actually second order knowledge or association. So I'd like to encourage you to try to move away from associations. Not that associations are wrong, but it's just kind of one step in our knowledge development process. Ultimately, we do want to end up with principles. So first reason to use field experiments, we can draw a causal conclusion. Second reason relates to measurement, and that's about validity and reliability of our findings. And I could talk about this for weeks, honestly, but I thought I'd just give you a few of the key snippets to convince you that it's worthwhile moving from one-off cross-sectional surveys to field experiments. First of all, people do not say what they don't do what they say they do. That's really important, right? Because if we aim to change behavior, then we need to actually be able to rely on the measure of behavior. And if we can't, well, then the validity of our study findings is quite fundamentally in question. So people don't do what they say they do. Quick study to illustrate that. My PhD student, Logi Carlson, did a study in Iceland with boat tourists. And what he did is there was a space where the boats were docking and where the tickets were being purchased. So tourists bought tickets from boat A or boat B. And then after they bought the ticket, Logi went and asked them a survey. Now, the difference between the boats was nothing. They were the same proposition with one single difference. One of them was eco-certified and the other one was not eco-certified. So people sat down after having bought the tickets, they answered a questionnaire, and one of the questions asked was, have you considered the environment when you chose which of the two tours to book? And guess what? 60% of respondents says, absolutely, we considered the environment. So that's great news, right? That means we go to a boat provider A and we say, you've got to get yourself eco-certified. Now the picture is quite different when Logi hops on the boat with these people and says, well, is the boat you are now standing on eco-certified or not? And guess what? Only 14% find themselves on the eco-certified boat and actually know that. So this is a massive gap, right? The managerial recommendations we would make based on 60% are quite different than the managerial recommendations we would make based on 14%. So if we want to measure behavior, if we want to change behavior, if we want to understand behavior, we need to actually validly measure it. And that is often not possible when we ask people about either stated behavior or about behavior intentions. People's responses are not stable. So what does that mean? If I ask you the same question twice in a row, it's unlikely I'm going to get the same answer. We're just going to look at the black bars in this chart. And what you see here is a number of different answer formats. Forced choice binary is a yes, no, and you're forced to answer. Then there's a bunch of others I'm not going to talk about. And then at the bottom, you see two different forms of 7-point scales. And what the percentage is the percent of getting the exact same response in a repeat survey 2 weeks later when nothing has changed about the content we're asking about. And I hope you are alarmed when you look at the number for the 7-point scales. It's between 43 and 47%. So you could almost say it's pretty random, right? So when we do all this sophisticated analysis and we assume that the 3 is a 3, it's actually not. A 3 could be a 2, or it could be a 4. It could be all sorts of things. So again, a real problem when we rely too much on self-reports that in fact, people are not very good at giving us stable responses. People interact with response options. So I am Slovenian and I am very opinionated. So whenever I get a questionnaire, I will either tick a 5 or I will tick a 1. I'm always in the extremes. In my perception, if I don't give you an extreme, I'm not being honest, right? But a lot of my colleagues, especially we know that from cross-cultural studies, people from Asia, they would never do that. They would view that as lacking modesty, right? So they will give us a much more humble, modest response, which will sit in the middle. So despite the fact that me and an Asian colleague of mine might have the same opinion, our responses on the answer scale could be entirely different, again, fundamentally undermining the validity of our findings. And of course, there's a mathematical argument here as well, that in fact, the distance as we perceive it between scale points is not the same, right? Whereas mathematically, we are treating it as being the same. And last one I thought I'd give you, because that's my favorite, is people actually don't read your survey questions, right? So we put out a survey and we think, well, you know, this is a great survey. Everyone is going to read it. Everyone's going to concentrate and give us really good answers. That's unfortunately not the reality. So what you see here is the results of a little eye tracking study we did. So underneath the dots is a survey question. And each of the dots you see is where the eye of the respondent went. So what you see here is fantastic respondent. Read the scenario at the top, looked in detail at the intervention, then inspected very carefully all the answer options, went to respond, thought, oh, I better check again, went back again, responded. The whole process took 92 seconds. And if that's the kind of data we have in surveys, fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Not so if we have this kind of data. So this was a second respondent, and you can see they entirely skipped reading the scenario. Then they looked at the stimulus that's in the middle, especially they looked at the good-looking lady there in the picture. Then they moved down to the answers, and actually they didn't at all look at the answer options. They just went ticking boxes, and that was it. All done in 13 seconds. Clearly, totally invalid data, because nobody can answer this question without having read the scenario first, right? All right, now I could go on and on and on and on, but I will stop because I have some other things I'd like to talk to you about. But really important, when we ask the question, why would we engage in field experiments when they're much more expensive and much more difficult and much more complicated and much more labor intensive? Well, there's two good reasons. One is we need to measure real behavior in real contexts if we want to be able to give real good recommendations to industry about how to change the world and make it more sustainable. And secondly, we want to discover principles. We want to discover a causal understanding of what drives what. Only causal understanding allows us to give recommendations about what we can change to make a difference. All right, second question, why the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Well, now I went too fast. Let's see if I can go back. There we go. Well, they're just an absolutely brilliant framework. I've discovered them only recently, I will confess, but they are just the most beautiful framework to align your research with purpose, in my opinion. So you see what they are here: blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future. And the two areas that are particularly relevant for my work are climate change and environmental degradation. Why, for me personally, the Sustainable Development Goals? Because I've done research for a long time now, very long time actually, some 25 years. And I'm at the point where I actually really would like to create change. I don't want to do research anymore that doesn't lead to something meaningful. I want to make a difference with my research. I want to fill my work with meaning. I want to go to work every day thinking, you know what? I'm going to try to crack this. I'm going to try to develop something that's going to actually change something. Now, what I don't want to be understood to say is that blue sky research doesn't matter. I think blue sky basic research is super important, because oftentimes we are unable to do what we're doing with interventions if it hadn't been for people doing a lot of blue sky research about the underlying theories or whatever it may be. So it's not either or, but certainly to me, it's a fantastic framework to guide our research aspirations. Now, for me personally, I currently run the Low Harm Hedonism Initiative at the University of Queensland in Australia. And what does that mean? We try to make people behave in more sustainable ways in enjoyment-focused contexts. Now, vacations are obviously very enjoyment-focused, but it's not just vacations. It's also when we go out for dinner or we go and grab a takeaway coffee. All of these things, we focus on how enjoyable they are to us. And so for social scientists, they're particularly challenging, because that's when people are least motivated to do the right thing and be sustainable. So for us, it's a meaningful and great challenge. And we try to do this without making consumers sacrifice their satisfaction with the experience with the product. And we try, wherever possible, to also do these things without imposing extra cost on the service providers. So for us, the three particular goals are sustainable cities and communities, climate action, and most of all, responsible consumption and production. Now, as you know, tourism has a lot of potential to improve responsible consumption and production. We are the fifth most polluting industry. We generate 8% of global CO2 emissions. We contribute up to 12.5% to global warming. We generate 35 million tons of solid waste every year, and every tourist on average uses 300 liters of water per guest per night. Now, that doesn't mean that they're excessively showering, but if you add up all the pools and all the landscaping and all the laundry washing, that's what it adds up to. So absolutely gigantic water use. So a lot of reason to try hard and make consumption and production in our industry more responsible. All right, and now the most exciting bit, examples of field experiments that have actually managed to make a contribution to those UN Sustainable Development Goals in tourism. And some of them are studies we conducted in my research group. Some are studies from other colleagues all around the world aiming to achieve different things. So here, the first one, I've put the little goal on the right-hand side for you. So it's all about responsible consumption and production. But here it's target 12.6, encourage companies, especially large ones, to adopt sustainable practices and integrate sustainable information. So what can we give companies, in this case hotels, a toolbox how they can actually start operating in more sustainable ways? So this was a study we conducted in Slovenia in collaboration with Ljubica Knežević-Čvelbar and my colleague, statistician Bettina Grün from Vienna. And it was in a hotel in Boch, in Eco Hotel in Slovenia, beautiful, beautiful area, very nice hotel. And what we tried to do is we tried to get people to voluntarily waive their room clean. Now, usually about 3% of people put the sign out saying, please don't clean my room. 3%, of course, is absolutely nothing, right? And you would know this. A lot of hotels already offer this, but we have no understanding of how strong the effect is of the various initiatives that the hotels implement. So what we did is we tried a sharing-based approach. So we gave them, this bit is not new. We said, if you waive your room clean, we'll give you a free drink. Not new, you've seen that in hotels before. But the way we explained it, we said to them, look, if you're gonna waive your room clean, we admit we're gonna save cost, right? So we're not gonna initially tell you about the environment. This is about a cost saving for us. However, what we're happy to do is we're gonna go halves. We're gonna split it down the middle. You get half in form of a drinks voucher, and we pocket half as additional profits. Now that little intervention communicated as a sharing-based approach reduced room cleaning by 42%. What I didn't tell you, each room clean 1.5 kilowatt hours of electricity, 100 milliliters of chemicals, 35 liters of water. So huge potential to reduce this without really impacting guest satisfaction. And that's exactly what we find here. People really are not offended by the fact that one day the room is not clean. So unnecessary room cleans are a great potential for improved environmental performance. But then we were curious and we said, well, what if we give you an environmental argument also? And get what? Absolutely no difference. All right. So here, the trigger, the intervention that worked was much more about the sharing argument and the free drink than it was about saving the planet. People honestly don't care. They're on holiday. They just want to enjoy themselves. So we measured actual behavior. People opted out or opted in. And we managed, by not preaching to them, by sharing with them, to quite dramatically change the room cleaning operation in this particular hotel. Even better was the approach we tried in another hotel in Slovenia, which is very much of a business hotel. And it's not as luxurious. It's a 3-star business hotel. So quite a different group of people. So we tried a different approach, a much simpler and cheaper approach, actually. We just changed the default. So instead of saying to people, look, we're going to clean your room every day, unless you tell us not to, we changed it to, we will not clean your room every day, unless you tell us. Yeah. So the sign was not, please don't clean your room, but the sign was, please do clean my room. So change in default, known to be very powerful generally across many behaviors. And importantly, no financial consequences. So if you ask for the clean, there's no extra fee for that. Yeah? And you see even better effect than our free drinks voucher, 60% reduction in room cleaning, and just as happy guests. Absolutely no difference. These are business people. They come in, most of the time, they're not in the hotel anyway. So very, very effective way to change operations to be more sustainable. We can also make tourists reduce shower time. You wouldn't believe it, but it really is a problem. So a hotel here in Brisbane we're working with, they told us it regularly happens that the fire alarm gets, goes off in people's bathrooms because they shower so long that all the steam of the shower triggers the fire alarm. So excessive showering seems to be an issue in tourism. Now, this is not our study, just so you don't mix it up. But what these guys did is pretty brilliant. They just gave instant feedback on water use, nothing else. You can just see the water liters flowing through, not on a computer, right? On a little tiny screen next to the shower hose. And that led to a 11% reduction in energy. This was actually not measured in water, but in the electricity used to heat the water for people's showers. And absolutely no difference on guest satisfaction. So again, a very simple, effective intervention, proven, causally proven to change behavior. All right, what else can we do? I see. We're going to change the targets now. So you can see here, now we're going on to waste and specifically food waste. So target 12.3 says by 2030, we want to halve the per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer level and so on and so on. And then also target 12.5, which says substantially reduce the waste generation more broadly. So the next few studies are specifically about waste and plate waste generation. So now I don't have to tell you how people behave at buffets. People go absolutely nuts at buffets, especially families, because kids are out of control totally. So, but we can do something about it actually without having to give up the buffet serving style. We can make tourists eat up at buffets. And a very simple way to do it, again, not our study. I don't want to take credit for what I think is one of the most brilliant studies actually ever conducted, by reducing the plate size. So this study was conducted across 52 hotels, same chain. And the simplest thing, they just took the big plates away and replaced them with 3 centimeters smaller plates. No preaching, no explaining, no environmental justification, just reduction in plate waste. 20% reduction in the food waste generated, not food waste, plate waste. So that's literally the food that people leave uneaten behind after the meal. And you would be surprised, that is quite substantial. about 30% based on the estimates from our hotels here in Brisbane, especially that was a family hotel. So massive amounts of food taken from the buffet end up in landfill, basically producing methane, which is worse than CO2 in terms of greenhouse emissions. All right, so smaller plates, 3 centimeters smaller, 20% reduction in plate waste, and obviously big reduction for the hotels in terms of the expenditures for food. Absolutely no difference on the guest satisfaction. Why? Well, because they can go to the buffet 10 times. There's nothing holding them back from getting more food. They're not going to leave hungry, right? The only difference is we're preventing them from madly overfilling the plate. Same group of researchers had another even simpler intervention, actually. They found out, well, we all know that we are slightly embarrassed when we go for the 5th time back to the buffet and grab more, because we think, oh, I'm looking pretty greedy. That's embarrassing. I better not. So what people do instead is they just go once and overfill. And that, of course, is terrible, because then they end up not eating it and it gets thrown away. So what the same group of researchers did is they tried to counteract this embarrassment, this social embarrassment of going back to the buffet in a very simple way. They said, they put a table sign on the dining table saying you're welcome back again and again. Visit our buffet many times. That's better than taking a lot at once. Beautiful, very effective, 21% reduction in plate waste, and therefore also a reduction in cost for the hotels, and no change in guest satisfaction. And then we got all inspired and we said, we have got to do something about plate waste, especially with families. So we measured the waste generated in a Slovenian family hotel. That's Bernardin. It was Hotel Histrion, actually, which has a lot of families coming and staying there and eating both breakfast and dinner buffets. So in the first instance, we just measured how much waste do these people generate. And we found our stats. But what we found importantly is the single biggest segment, the worst segment in terms of plate waste are families. And so we thought, let's see if we can design something that specifically targets families, because if we can achieve something there, then the effect is going to be much bigger in terms of the impact and the outcome. So what did we do? We gave children what children love most. We gave them stamps and we gave them prizes. So this is literally how basic our sticker book was. So sorry, Dimitrios, nothing smart about that. It was literally one A4 paper. And every time at dinner, when the family ate up, they got a stamp. And if they had stamps for every single day of their stay, then at checkout, they got a little prize. The kids got a little prize, a tiny prize, hardly worth mentioning. But you know how kids are. They actually don't care. It's just about the enjoyment of collecting stamps and the gesture of getting a little prize. So this little intervention here reduced plate waste among families in the hotel by 38%. But what we enjoyed most observing how it all panned out was they just all loved it. I mean, the kids were absolutely going crazy about the game. And because of the cultural setting in Slovenia and the guests that were attracted to this particular hotel, our intervention here was also beautifully aligned with the parental messaging about eating up what's on your plate. So we had happy kids, we had happy parents, we had happy grandparents, we had a very happy hotel, because 38% less plate waste clearly does translate into a cost reduction. And of course, a very happy sustainable development goal in terms of achieving an improvement in sustainability. All right, what else do we have? Oh, I went too fast. So this is one of my new favorite studies. And it's actually one of the first studies we published in Annals of Tourism Research Empirical Insights. And here we are not my study. So again, another group of researchers. And they said, well, it's not all about the customer. It's also what's happening in the kitchen, right? So they had a very, very simple intervention at the back end of the operations in the kitchen. And what did they do? They removed the really big, intransparent garbage bins that they use in the kitchens with smaller, transparent ones. That's not a good picture. I think that's like a paper basket, but I couldn't find a better one. So just imagine a transparent plastic, much smaller bin. And that's the only thing they changed. And that led to 73% reduction of kitchen preparation waste. And why? Well, there were a number of explanations the authors present to us. The two that I remembered was, one, you can actually now see what's in the bin. So the chefs go and say, hang on, why did you throw away half of the tomato? You could have chopped a few more slices off, right? And the second thing is particularly funny. People are just too lazy to empty the bin. So because it was a smaller bin, it would have meant that they would have had to go and empty it more times than the big bin. So they were just too lazy, and they just stopped putting so much in so they could save themselves a trip of emptying the rubbish. All right, I think that's all the examples I wanted to share with you today. There are many, many, many more targets to hit. And even within those targets, there's millions and millions of different approaches and interventions we can try to contribute to these goals, and with it to contribute to more sustainable operations in tourism. So hopefully you are a little bit maybe inspired, and maybe you can choose your own target, and maybe you can even do a field experiment, because it's very satisfying when you actually see that something really works in the real world and makes an impact. So thank you very much for listening. I do not think we have time for questions, if I understand the way, or if you give me time, I'm very happy to take questions. But if you if you have a brilliant idea and you want to collaborate, by all means, feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was wonderful. And it's actually very satisfying to see colleagues and Sarah in particular with a passion of bringing science into industry and make a difference really to the world, because a lot of the scientific work is staying with the scientific world and doesn't go to industry. And a lot of those ideas, they always bring me kind of inspiration when we are talking to industry on how little things can make a huge, huge difference. Sarah, I understand it's quite late in Brisbane.
Yes.
Yes, it is. And I was monitoring the questions on the YouTube channel. We didn't have any questions yet, particularly as you were speaking. I'm sure that people are thinking at the same time. And what we'll do is we'll keep questions at the end at 12:30, so in 2 hours' time. But by that time, I know that you would have gone to bed.
Dimitros, I'm very sorry, but I'm very happy for you guys to email me if you have urgent questions, and I will do my best to respond to those.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you very much, Sarah. Great to have you with us, and hopefully we'll see each other and share a nice glass of something very soon. Take good care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very much, Sarah. Have a nice time. Thank you.
Lovely to then introduce a very good friend of mine, Tanya Mihalic from the University of Slovenia. And Tanya and I have done quite a lot of work together in the last few years. I'm not going to say how many, but I remember Tanya coming to the University of Westminster when I was there years and years and years ago. And Tanya is an economist, but she's a social scientist, and she's doing a whole range of things that they're dealing with sustainability, and the latest research is on how can you make what people call over-tourism, which I hate the word over-tourism. I don't think over-tourism exists, but never mind, that's a personal hate of mine. But how can you actually manage over-tourism, and what can you do to bring destinations forward? I know that Tanya is going to take us through a very interesting presentation, so I don't want to take some more time. Tanya, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dimitrios, for the introduction, and good day to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the presentation. Another one, let me share the screen, please. Okay. Yes. So, am I sharing the screen? Do you see it?
We do, but we see that the present this thing.
Okay,
So,
I will
click
share slideshow now. So
perfect.
Is it
Perfect.
okay?
Thank you, Tanya.
Okay, thank you very much. So Quo Vadis Tourism, welcome from the University of Ljubljana, Slovenia again. Can COVID-19 stop the return of over-tourism pandemic? Is a provocative question that I want to ask. But basically, my presentation is going to be about how sustainable was tourism before the COVID-19 pandemic and how sustainable will tourism be in a post-COVID world. The approach I'm going to take is going to be narrower, old understanding of the sustainable tourism paradigm and the broader understanding of the same paradigm. And what I mean by the word paradigm is the academic thinking circle and also the practical doing, how we understand and see the sustainable world and how we are doing it. And it is only the small field, the intersection between the two circles that actually means the paradigm. So it is not staying in the academic thinking, but also going out in making tourism more sustainable. And in this respect to the conference topic, this paradigm intersection is more about the Sustainable Development Goals agenda, which are the blueprint of action, how to do tourism and the world more sustainable. So this is connection of my topic with the topic of this conference. And now a brief presentation of what I mean with the narrow old understanding of the paradigm. What I mean is balancing three sustainable tourism pillars, the impact of tourism, positive and negative, and thinking in the 3 P's dimension, which are, as you know, the economic environment, the social environment, and the natural or environment as WTO is naming it. And this was the main principle, the main understanding of the sustainability confirmed by academic thinking, but academic and also institutional thinking was much broader. But nevertheless, what penetrated to the real world was the 3 pillars concept. And how were we approaching this for decade, more than a decade, 2 decades? We have approached this from 2 perspectives. There were economists and managers on the one side, as a scientist thinking about how to make tourism more sustainable, using the economic approach, expanding our dollar thinking, monetary valuation, financial aspects in order to make the future more sustainable. And there was also something else out there, sociologists, psychologists, and other scientists who were also trying to bring these 3 circles of our world together. But still, all the time, the economic circle had a different color, and the ecological circles, the nature and the society as ecological dimension, had a different color. And there was a constant nexus between the ecological and economic issues. And then it comes to the rethinking, how do we want to have our future in terms of sustainability? And I will just illustrate this change in the economic thinking by the Nobel Prize winner, Joseph Stiglitz, who was a chief economist of the World Bank and very much in favor of neoclassical liberal economics and the allocation of resources, all resources from all 3 circles by a market mechanism. But then he, working in the field, he changed his opinion, and he was not the only one. And he asked, what is our measure of success? What does it really matter for development? Is this that really matters? Sorry. Is this that really matters, or is there something more? And then he wrote this book, Measuring What Counts, so for welfare. And he has defined welfare as the measure of success. And also the thinking was going in the direction of quality of life, happiness, maybe even happy planet index that is taking all three dimensions into account when defining the success, or how do we want to see our future and our reality in terms, I will use now the word of the sustainability. But in the reality, the real tourism world, we found out that it was actually alarmingly unsustainable. We did have this idea of the sustainability, but the real world, with the words of Freya Higgins Desboyles, is alarmingly unsustainable. Many other tourism academics have also written about this. And then the WTO in 2019 has done this study. They have studied 101 strategies, agendas of country member states, and they found out that 100% of these strategies had objective sustainability. So in terms of paradigm, it is in the intersection. Here we are, yes, we are for the sustainability. It actually is the mainstream paradigm, how to develop and how to do the work. But when they went deeper into this, they realized that the strategies were talking about 67% about resource efficiency, about this side, and 64% by competitiveness, about this side. And this is, again, this nexus between the economic and ecological view and doing tourism that I'm saying has been with us all the time. And many, many academics in the academic circle of the paradigms have criticized, have written about the growth, about the social force of tourism to be different, to be better, and how we are going to make a world a better place, a political synonym for more sustainable by doing tourism. This is the reality that we are living in. And what is then the broader view, the updated view of the understanding of the sustainability that takes into account this, what really measures, what really counts? So there is the model that has been developed 6 years ago for the first time, and now more and more implemented in the tourism research. And this understanding of the sustainability is taking from the academics thinking about the sustainability, all the elements that you will see, but it is a call for a tourism paradigm, the intersection, to be broadened. Sustainability pillars are still there. 3 Ps that we have seen before are still there. And the nexus between the economic and ecological world is still there. But what has been added? It has been added what really counts, the social indicators, the social measures from the field of psychology and from the field of socio-political environment. Socio-psychological stakeholders dimension that incorporates what really matters when we are designing our future and our today. And this is the residents' satisfaction with the quality of life because of tourism, the visitor satisfaction with the visitations, the industry opportunities. And of course, the political dimension that of course needs to be there. And this is the awareness of the full sustainability must be developed, and also agendas like as the Sustainable Development Goals, like any blueprint for sustainable action that is based on the broader understanding of the sustainability would enable the transition into the future. But talking about the gap, it is the gap, whose responsibility is the gap between the real unsustainable reality and the idea of sustainability. Goodwin, a guru of responsible tourism, is saying, well, the stakeholders, all the stakeholders here, visitors, the industry, and also the residents, are responsible for tourism to make it sustainable. And this model is called sustainable and responsible tourism. It is basically about the broader sustainability, but it combines the conceptual three pillars with the responsibility triggers that make people, I'm using now the Sarah's word, to eat less. So how to save the food and meet the sustainable development goal in the food. And this is about broadening the intersection between academic thinking and practical doing, because no paradigm is set once and for all. Paradigm is constantly changing, expanding with the new knowledge that is coming into the thinking, academic thinking, or with the new phenomena being developed in a tourism reality coming in from this side. So much about the framework and the approach. And now just let me a very short comment on what I'm talking about when I'm talking about post-COVID pandemic era and how sustainable tourism was before and after. So it is that the post-COVID pandemic era is not without COVID, but this is when countries have reopened to international tourist arrivals, but are still monitoring the situation and may still have different travel policies such as COVID semaphore, passport, mandatory testing, or quarantine or on arrival. We are already entering the post-COVID area. We have just seen that Italy has announced to open the international visitation at the 15th of May this year. Dimitrios has shown us the company that is flying again to bring us to the foreign countries. When the old normal is coming, we don't, I mean, the normal without COVID, we don't know yet. How sustainable was tourism before the pandemic? In 2017, we all still remember the world media from all over the world reporting about over-tourism pandemic. The 100 destinations all around the world in more than 60 countries have been infected by over-tourism. Over-tourism was a result of a tourism growth, and it is a manifestation of unsustainable tourism, and it is a kind of tourism crisis that is affecting all pillars and all responsibility triggers that we are presenting in our SRT model. But on the other hand, if we look what has happened, and if we use this model, then we can see what has happened because of tourism growth. It has happened that too narrow sustainability view has forgotten some elements, and this was why agenda failure has happened. And this is agenda failure. It is the leadership and governance towards sustainable tourism that has happened, that we have arrived to the situation of unsustainable tourism, because the paradigm was there about sustainable tourism. It didn't happen. And also the actions failure, the management has been unsuccessful to assure the implementation of a sustainable tourism in the real life. And interesting, the first international organization, the WTTC, World Travel and Tourism Countries, was the first one who reacted to the over-tourism situation. They published the same year when this started to happen, they published the study by WTTC and McKinsey and Company that did not address the over-tourism. They are using the word overcrowding, and they are talking about managing with success. So they see, the industry association sees tourism growth very much as a success story of tourism that has led to the unsustainable tourism. No, they didn't say that. They said to the crowding that can be managed. And later, few months later, WTO has also published its own study that is already addressing the political dimension, that the over-tourism is only a political crisis. And if we think about what the unsustainable over-tourism is, the failure of the leadership and governance, and that the WTO is the highest body internationally that we have, that is responsible for the leadership and governance towards sustainable tourism in line with the code of ethics for tourism that we have, and with the World Committee on Tourism Ethics that is responsible for that. I think this was not an easy political task in order to recognize the over-tourism, not just overcrowding. And the Secretary General at the time said to the media, obviously a very serious situation that needs to be seriously addressed. And this is what we were doing before the COVID. The EU was paying studies, Carlos, about over-tourism. And now they are paying studies about COVID tourism, if I may say so. And then 2020, when we just started to talk what needs to be changed so that the leadership and governance and management of tourism, of sustainable tourism would be successful. So what is our success in sustainable development? Then the COVID has come, and we have changed from over-tourism agenda to unsustainable tourism agenda, which is again unsustainable tourism and unsustainable crisis. Exactly, I will say almost the opposite. And we have many lessons from such situations from the past, the lessons from the World War, the lessons from the war in Slovenia in 91, the war on the Balkan, the terrorist attack, the September 11, and also some diseases. And we do know that after the event goes away, that the tourism will recover very soon, even with the revenge effect, and will start growing and will catch up as soon as possible and will go the same as before. This is now just the illustration and my opinion, but the history is teaching us that so much, so where we are heading now. And this is the summary of the message of this discussion before I do the conclusion. So the sustainable tourism paradigm is about thinking about tourism and acting, doing sustainable tourism. It refers to the concept of sustainability and responsibility. It means all the 6 elements of sustainability and responsibility are relevant if we want to make the change. Measuring, the reality is that our measuring and our doing the image of tourism and understanding tourism for the decades has been very much measured by tourism growth. 1 billion international tourist arrivals by 2030 were, I would say, the global measurement of the success of the tourism industry that has been very much promoted, not only by international institutions and governments, but also by academia, by us. And tourism growth in financial measures, international tourism revenues, and in physical flows numbers, international tourism arrivals was seen as a growth of opportunities. 1.4 billion ITAs, 1.4 opportunities for the countries, for the destinations to develop tourism. But on the other hand, all the destinations have a sustainable tourism development strategy and agenda, and still there is a gap between the implementation of the sustainability in the real life, which is based on the balancing the 3 sustainability pillars only approach, which has been criticized in the tourism academia already. There is also the gap between economic and ecological pillar that is raising the voices for the degrowth of tourism and for the social change in tourism, which has never so far been really answered how this should be done. And then we have the WTO organization, which is responsible for the sustainable and responsible tourism leadership and governance. And the WTO is committed to the sustainable tourism through global goals agenda, sustainable development goals. We also have the WTO the Code of Ethics for Tourism, which has been adopted in 1999 in Santiago de Chile, and later turned into the Convention on Tourism Ethics in 2019. I was there when the World Committee on Tourism Ethics was doing this, turning the code into the convention, for one reason only, because they wanted to have a stronger base to govern and lead the world development in tourism towards more sustainability, because the code is voluntarily, and almost all the countries, I could say, have somehow adopted it. But you have seen the strategies, how sustainable they actually are and how responsible. But the convention is a subject of the international law and more binding. And so the WTO thought this would be a better push in order to go in the right direction. But unfortunately, so far, only one country has signed the convention, and this was Indonesia. And it means that the convention, in order to become legally binding, needs to be ratified by more than one country. So it is still a sleeping one. But the fact that it was only one country, it does raise the question, what are our actual intentions to make tourism more sustainable, especially, I would argue, in the context of the nexus between the ecological and economic issues, which might be the main one. And then what has happened, the over-tourism that I have mentioned, and then in between, the European Union adopted the Green Deal, and we also have seen the Convention of the European Union on Green Tourism that is applying the Green Deal to the tourism field. In 2000, COVID pandemic come across, and that just let me finish in optimistic way, like Dimitrios is emphasizing. This week, the TriNet has published a press release from the WTO saying that the WTO and the G20 are standing for transition to a green travel and tourism economy. So I have copied this from the press release just to show you it's going to be green travel and tourism economy. I may see here still the nexus, but nevertheless, it is the political decision to go in the direction of the sustainability in responsibility. And I think this is as much as we have asked from our leading governor and leader towards the sustainability tourism future. And I see this very positive. But despite this, to conclude, what is the future tourism, how sustainable is going to be in the post-COVID world? I see here the perspective one, the option one, which will stay with the same narrow tourism paradigm I have presented, and we will still be thinking, and the countries will still be thinking about how to increase the visitation, how to increase the IRAs, international tourism revenues. So in the financial hard data figures about tourism development, and this is not going to be, the focus will be on recovery, the focus will be on growth, but the focus will also be on the very strong competition, because they will be competing on what doesn't really matter for the sustainability, but it might matter for the, at least for the kind of political economy in terms of, yes, we are growing, we are doing better. And this is not a rosy map of the picture, because it's not gonna get us where the Sustainable Development Goals agenda is directing us to. Here I have listed some changes that are happening too slow. And then the perspective 2, if we will really focus on the quality of life dimension or welfare dimension of our future, implement welfare social measures, the expanding paradigm of tourism on both sides, this can be road to a more sustainable tourism. But what is really demanded here, I tried to list a little bit a full awareness and also cooperation and collaboration of all stakeholders for the future that we are visualizing. So this is the discussion I wanted to make, and I do hope that in the future we are not all going to be doing what Sarah is doing, measuring the gap between what we are saying and what we are actually doing in all spheres of tourism sustainability, politicians, industry, visitors, and so yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tanya. It has been an excellent presentation and very, very good. Even Philippa is waving and saying that it was brilliant. Your speech is very much close to the speech we have here in Aveiro. It's about economics and management. And what we are trying to do is also to update our discourse. Because even from my presentation yesterday, I mean, I was approaching this from, of course, an economic point of view, but at the same time, we have to bring, things like the environment, the Green Deal into the discourse, because otherwise the planet will not be sustainable in the future. So I'm sure that you are going to have questions in the end, but in the meantime, we are going to move to the next speaker. And it's with a great pleasure that I'm going to introduce Dayanand, Professor Dayanand. He is at present Dean of the Goa Business School, but I always like to remember Dayanand 20 years ago, back 20 years ago, when he came to Aveiro and he was doing his PhD. And he did some field work in northern Portugal, and in particular in rural tourism, and he did some comparative studies between Portugal and India, and it was clearly a brilliant PhD. At present, Dayanand is involved in many other areas, and in particular is doing a very nice study on the alcoholic beverage called FEMI, which is very much appreciated in Goa. And Dayanand has also some particular research interests, namely on beach tourism, adventure tourism, and interland tourism. So, Dayanand, thank you very much for coming and for joining us. It's always a pleasure to see you at the Invtur. It's the second time, and I'm sure that we will bring you back in the future as well. Thank you, Dayanand.
Thank you, Carlos. For some reason, my camera has just stopped working.
Oh.
So can I, if you permit me, I can just probably restart and come back, or if we could just go ahead without it, I can start my presentation.
So yeah, it's okay, no problem, Dayanand. And if you feel that you have problems, and if Zelia doesn't mind, what we can do is we can have Zelia now, and then you come back and you present. What do you think about that?
It's working
Dayanand?
till now. I don't know, because it's not, the video is not starting. It says failed to start the video camera. Please just select another
problem.
Video.
Zelia, are you ready for your presentation? Dayanand, yes.
Yeah, I can do it. I can start my presentation, but you won't be able to see me. That's the only thing.
No problem. I mean, provided we can see your presentation, it's okay. I
mean, yeah. That's right.
That
presentation
will be
is absolutely fine.
Because you are a good-looking guy. But never mind. We'll keep your photograph somewhere here. Okay. Is it okay, Dayanand?
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely fine. So
all right. So let's go for the presentation for the PPT.
Yeah. I'll start sharing the screen.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Are you able to see that?
Okay.
Are you able to see that?
That is the last one, yes.
That's the last one, but I'll start off with the first one. Sorry.
It's okay.
Start off with the first one.
Go back. Yeah, take time. Take your time. We are from tourism, so we are always on holidays. We have time, plenty of time, no problem.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Diane.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Sorry for this video interruption. It was there throughout, and then suddenly the last minute it just went off. I don't know what's the reason, but fine. When I looked at this particular theme, I was just wondering who exactly does this work on sustainability in terms of achieving these goals? Because I thought the goals were all centric to the entire world, and that brought me to something which we have in India. It's a saying, and I'll just tell you what the saying is. I'll just show you. These are a few pictures of Earth as seen from the Indian satellite Chandrayaan, which went on to the moon. If you see, I'm not able to see this, but on top is written. Is there something written on top? Because I'm having this panel here on top and I'm not able to see this. Oh yeah, that's right. So what you can see there on top is, can you see it now? It's called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It's a Sanskrit word, or a sentence rather. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. There are three words in this. One is Vasudha, the third is Eva, and the second is Eva, and the third is Kutumbakam. Vasudha means, technically, if you Google it, it says, Wikipedia says world, but that's not the right nomenclature for that. Vasudha essentially means earth, and Kutumbakam means a family. So right in the ancient days, we used to look at earth as one family. When I say earth as one family, it has a difference when we say world is one family. So normally what happens is that we look at the kind of interdependencies that are there within a family, and hence within the earth as well. So we look at all aspects associated with this interdependence, which we call as life. And life goes on because of interdependence. The reason why I was looking at this also was that tourism as a phenomena has got tremendous amount of interdependence across suppliers, across customers, within the organizations, across divisions, across societies, across resources. So these were all elaborated both by Sarah as well as by Dimitrios earlier, when he said that smartness is basically looking at collecting all this, connecting all these aspects, various aspects in tourism and in society. So we look at, So how are these organizations going to associate themselves with sustainable development goals? So I thought, let me look at different 17 goals and then convert them into areas which are similar and help an organization understand how it can respond. So there are 4 areas which I have identified and looked at. One is nourishment. Second one is individual upliftment. Third one is societal environment. And the fourth one is the work environment. So if we look at all the 16 plus the last goal in terms of partnership for goals, which I feel is extremely important because we are interdependent, and without partnership, it's going to be very difficult for organizations to come together to work towards achieving these sustainable development goals. So we have nourishment, which talks about no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, and clean water and sanitation. So those are the nourishing areas or goals. We have gender equality, quality education, and reduced inequalities as individual upliftments within the society. Then we have affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, life below water, life on land, and climate action as the societal environmental part of it. And then we have decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, peace, justice, and strong institutions, responsible production and consumption as the work environment. I could have looked at peace, justice, and strong institutions as a part of societal environment, but I was basically looking at how organizations are going to interact and how organizations are going to respond by having strong and justice and strong institutions within, so that they can take care of any kind of anomalies that happen. It's just like being in a family. You have issues within a family and you resort with good frameworks within the family to sort those issues out. So when I looked at this, I was just wondering, why would an organization want to do it? Why would any organization, whether it is in tourism or in any other area, would want to associate itself with sustainable development goals unless there are some incentives? Organizations, especially businesses, as Carlos said, tourism is business ultimately. Right? Businesses, why would they look at it? One of my very good friends, who's a professor in Wales, he's Welsh basically. He told me that many economists understand. He's an economist himself. Many economists understand the price of everything and the value of nothing. So we start looking at what exactly is the value which an organization associates. And without any kind of a value which they see, no organization would be willing to get into this aspect of achieving sustainable development goals. And it's not just left to the governance or different governments to achieve these sustainable goals, because we are all a part and parcel of society. And every individual organization would have to work towards having or achieving these sustainable development goals. So I was just wondering, when I came up with 5 aspects which I thought are extremely important as parameters of an organization, which will be impacting all these areas. So the first one for organizational parameters was productivity. No institution will do something which is unproductive or can reduce productivity. The second one was in terms of performance. Would every organization be interested in the kind and type of performance? I'm not talking about financial performance because that would come in later, but performance in terms of meeting certain targets associated with stakeholders, giving good return on investments, ensuring that your costs are reduced effectively. Performance in terms of, especially in tourism, ensuring that you have a greater amount of room nights being utilized or your resources being utilized. So performances, as far as the organization is concerned, would necessarily have to be at the top level for an organization to be incentivized into getting into sustainable development goals. And just as Sarah was talking about, cost reduction and guest satisfaction are 2 great drivers for the tourism industry. Third one is a very ubiquitous one, which is profitability. No organization would like to do something which can put a dent into the profitability part of it. But the 4th and the 5th one, which I'm putting up here, are something which are extremely important. I don't know if organizations are continuously monitoring the kind of progress that they have as far as sustainable development goals are concerned. Countries do it. We have indices which sustainable development goal indices, and across all the 17, and India stands differently on different sustainable development goals. But when we look at organizations and their association with sustainable development goals or achieving sustainable development goals, whether the progress really is identified and looked at. The 5th one is something which almost all organizations are interested in terms of keeping this particular perception. And just as was mentioned in the presentation on the experimental design by Sarah, where the ecological aspects of the boat were not being considered. It's how you perceive. How can the society, how can your stakeholders perceive your organization, and whether associating yourself with any of the sustainable development goals would increase or help the organization being perceived as a better organization. So these are some of the organizational parameters which I thought would be put in. So I started to look at each area which I spoke about earlier in terms of nourishment, individual upliftment, societal environment, and work environment, and look at associating whether they are positive or negative in terms of their association in the industry. So if we look at nourishment, no poverty. I basically am looking at economic poverty here, because there are other poverties which are also impacting society as far as attaining sustainable development goals are. For example, there is a great amount of talk on civic poverty of countries to be on the civic sense part of it, which is extremely important in tourism. So we have host guest associations which are impacted just because the level of civic poverty is relatively high, either at the destination or in the host in the guest community. So when we look at trying to end economic poverty, there was a study which was conducted by the Indian Institute of Corporate Social Responsibility, which identified 2 hotels, ITC as well as Taj, as chains of hotels, which are involved in ensuring that people who are associated with them in terms of ancillary units, or people who are associated with them in terms of supplies, are helped to a large extent. For example, Taj is identified, there's a very small place called Benares, which is now the constituency of the current Prime Minister, but it is famous for its saris, which are woven, and they are traditional saris woven. So they decided to help people who were there in that business by ensuring that those saris were showcased in the Taj hotels effectively. And they also ensured that a larger percentage of them were picked up by the Taj in terms of their employees as well. So ending poverty or trying to push poverty out by assuring that they have greater economic opportunities for people around you with whom you're connected as an organization is something which can help. But it takes a hit on the profitability part of it, because you're doing something for someone else. It need not necessarily come in as a part of your organization's operational profits, and that reduces. But at the same time, it improves performance and productivity and the perception, no doubt. Productivity, why I'm saying, is primarily because the employees then feel more happy about being associated with a sort of philanthropic approach towards helping others, and hence the productivity also goes up. Perception, definitely. Zero hunger. We were talking about, Sarah was talking about production in plate size, helping people to reduce plate wastage. But that's as far as the organization is concerned. But if you need to create a zero hunger situation, there are many organizations here, many hotels in Goa here, who are managing what we call as old age homes, where most of the food that remains, not used by people, the food which remains because of the quantum of food that is prepared, goes in towards these old age homes. I'm sure a large number of hotels across the world also will be doing it when they have these kind of associations. But the idea is to reduce the hunger and ensure that there is sustainable agricultural growth or sustainable growth of food supply in the world. So this particular part, again, as I said, if you have too much of food, then automatically it reduces your profitability, because that's not the food which is going to generate the income for you, the one which you donate, the one which you give out, right? And in terms of performance, productivity, and perception, again, the same parameters which are there associated with ending poverty in terms of philanthropy do come in. The third aspect of good health and well-being is a win-win situation. So creating good health within the institution. We have a hotel here in Goa, which is extremely, it's one of the Taj properties now. It was not there earlier. Carlos probably would have seen it. It's pretty close to the university as well. They are extremely strong on health and well-being of each and every employee. In fact, some of the things which they do are associated with having very strong sports associations and activities for the employees. So they ensure that the employees are, just as in Japan, they organize for the employees to do physical exercises, etc. They have made yoga compulsory for their employees. This is across the entire Taj chain, which is happening. So good health and well-being increases profitability, performance, productivity, and perception within the organization itself. So clean water and sanitation, again, as a sustainable development goal, has reduced profitability primarily because there is a lot of investment that goes into this entire process of clean water and sanitation as far as the organizations are concerned. In fact, we had a very interesting situation in Goa where there was a move to have larger golf courses. And there was a tremendous amount of resistance to that, primarily because the water table in Goa is relatively low. The kind of water which is being utilized, as Sarah also was saying, in terms of 300 liters, the kind of water that is being utilized by many of the 5-star and executive hotels in Goa is phenomenally high. And that has reduced the water table substantially in many parts of the state, because people have got what we call as bore wells. They drill the earth and then get the water out. So the water table has substantially gone down. But this is water which is not relatively clean. If that's the water which is used for the purposes of gardening, etc., and for maintaining your lawns and for horticulture part within a property. But having clean water, having a plant which cleans the water and utilizing it within the rooms is an expensive proposition. And that's the reason why organizations are taking the shortcut, because you are ultimately you're looking at the kind of costs that are incurred. So profitability is impacted badly, whereas performance, productivity, and perception, again, are positively impacted by clean water and sanitation activities within the organization. When I move on to gender equality or individual upliftment, with every individual upliftment, the organization, in terms of its response, has tremendous positive impacts, both in terms of profitability as well as in terms of perception. Quality education is something which we are at the university level also pushing it up. We have now got a program for people who are working, and we're finding this particular program to develop so that people who are working in organizations also increase their levels of education. So giving out quality education for the employees is one of the parameters which impacts, of course, it impacts profitability primarily because they have to spend money on an employee and develop the particular employee. But there is a very interesting part in this particular, in the education part of it. We were looking at skills, and I had a very interesting encounter in Germany, where I was staying at a hotel for a week, and everyone within that particular small hotel, it was a hotel of about 40 rooms, everyone within the hotel was, I wouldn't say empowered, they were empowered, of course, but they had all the skills to take care of all the areas of the hotel, right from front office to the kitchen. So it was a very interesting scenario, because when I booked the hotel, I was told to tell them the exact time of arrival, because the hotel closes at 12 midnight and opens at 6 in the morning. It's a very interesting thing, because no hotel is usually closed for the night, but they lock the hotel at night. So if you're going to come after 12 midnight, you need to have your own key. I was just looking at why is it that the hotel indulges in these? And then I realized next day when I encountered the front office person, they have a very beautiful way of rotating themselves effectively, very seamlessly, in fact. They know each and every task, right from waiting on tables to food production inside the kitchen to managing the front office. And it is seamlessly done. So there's no guest who needs to wait either at the front office or at a table ordering food or waiting for the check to arrive. It was a very interesting aspect. And that's when I started looking and asking them as to how it happened. They said that they are trained. Now, training is a part of education as well, but they are trained effectively by the organization itself. So sometimes we look at quality education, which can be, I would say, exclusively trained or exclusive education for different organizations, which can increase the ability of the employees to go from one place to another with those skills. So performance increases, productivity was phenomenally high in this small hotel, which I saw. And the perception also about the organization taking care of the employees as well as of the guests in terms of guest satisfaction also increases. With reduced inequalities, we have the same win-win situation, profitability, performance, productivity, and perception, all four of them as far as the organization is concerned. If you have noticed, probably I have not looked at progress as the part, because I'm taking it for granted that the progress is consistently monitored to see that we reach these goals within the organization. The only issue here, as far as societal environment is concerned, is about how the organizations respond to affordable and clean energy. Would we really bother? Would the organization bother about affordable and clean energy? How many of them would like to utilize LEDs? How many of them would like to reduce their costs? But if they are going to install machinery, if they're going to invest in affordable and clean energy, it is going to be something which is impacting their profitability and productivity negatively. Productivity primarily because working with affordable and clean energy issues reduces an organization's ability in the short run. In the long run, as people would say, yes, in the long run, everything is fine in the long run, or as the economists say, everybody is dead in the long run, right? But in the short run, it has its impact as far as profitability and productivity is concerned, whereas performance and perceptions are manageable and have a positive impact. As far as their contribution to sustainable cities and communities, a large number of organizations do not invest in the kind of smart, innovative products that Dimitrios was talking about. Because when we look at, I was recently, and one of my PhD students is doing a paper on beach tourism, and we found out that there is no investment which is done either by the hotels which are being profitably impacted by beach tourism, nor is the destination management organization doing anything about investing in these kind of sustainable projects. So if there is an institution or an organization which is wanting to do that, it definitely has an impact on all the three: profitability, performance, and productivity. Whereas the perception is always managed, especially we have a honeypot area in Goa, which is called the Baga. I'll show you a small video which I had earlier sent to Carlos, shared it with him. It's called Baga, which is an excellent area for studying how tourism should not be managed. So I'll get down to that a little bit later. So life below water, life on land, and climate action. All these three things are relatively low on an organization's agenda as far as sustainable tourism development is concerned, because they would not be interested in doing anything life below water. Let me also share with you, Goa is on the coast. It's a land where fish is a part and parcel of life. It's a part and parcel of culture. But Goa imports fish from other states for its tourism consumption. So we are really not worried about ensuring that life below water is taken care of, but we are more bothered about the profitability part of it. Not because of anything else. Fish coming in imported from other states is relatively cheaper as compared to the fish available in Goa. So if it's going to cut my costs and I'm going to take care, I'm more interested in the profitability part of it. Because of which your performance really gets impacted, because your supply lines are not really very strong as far as tourism goes, because we have a season during the rainy season where performance in terms of an organization's needs, the hotel industry's needs for fish gets reduced drastically. This is the breeding season. But despite that, we have organizations which go in and fish even during the fishing season ban, so that the tourists are in a position to get the food necessary on the table. So they are all life on land, life below water, and climate action are all areas which are relatively low on the sustainable development goal scenario as far as the hospitality industry is concerned. Yeah, I'll just take 1 minute and then I'll finish. So we have decent work and economic growth. We have a large quantum of work and economic growth which is happening in India as far as tourism is concerned. Goa is a very strong tourism state, but if you look at the number of people who are working from Goa within the tourism industry, it's very low. We take in people where people earn less or are paid less. So we have workers from other states like Bihar and Orissa, which are two other states. One is in the north and one is in the eastern side of India. And these are the people who come in and work here as compared to people within Goa working. Now, this is basically, and if we want to give decent work and economic growth to people within Goa, it is going to impact on profitability, it's going to impact on performance, it's going to impact on productivity. Because of the nature of the workforce and labor force which exists within Goa. Innovation, industry, infrastructure, here again, just as in the case of clean and water and sanitation, profitability takes a hit, and hence they would certainly not be too keen and interested in doing innovations. Peace, justice, and strong institutions are extremely necessary within the organization, though I would certainly say that profitability might take a hit. I have given it a green signal primarily because it is not an individual institution or an organization which can create these peace, justice, and strong institutions. but a collective of the industry associations which does it. Responsible production and consumption. Again, productivity and profitability are two things which will get primarily, because the moment you are responsible, you are either reducing your productivity because you're not cutting corners, and it also impacts profitability, again, for the same reason that you're not cutting corners. So we look at the interdependence and internalization of the relationship between the organizational parameters and SDGs as a corporate response. Without the internalization of these relationships, which the sustainable development goals have, along with the organizational parameters of profitability, perception, progress, productivity, and performance, they are not going to have an impact on sustainable development goals, because the organizations would probably do it for a short time, but would not continue doing it, primarily because it will impact. This has been seen within Goa. Even the Taj and ITC hotels, which have a very strong reputation towards society as well as towards nature, have been at the receiving end in the long run. They have started working from 2010 onwards on these, on sustainability issues within Goa. And it's now almost 10, 11 years, and they have not been in a position to come out very strongly in terms of sustaining themselves. The entwining of these facets will help in developing sustained and progress of a society. I can say this definitely because one of my students did his PhD on what is called as sacred groves, which are a part and parcel. These are existing in different parts of the world as well. And these sustainable groves are something which are a very minuscule part of the ecology within a particular village, which are controlled and sustained by the villages itself. And Taj Hotels has organized for tourists to be educated about this in terms of a tour or a package tour, which is taken up to these sustainable, to these sacred groves within Goa. As Sarah had earlier said, prioritization is only in areas where they can reduce costs and they can have guest satisfaction not being impacted adversely. So these are the prioritizations by the organizations involved in the tourism phenomena. But I think there would be definitely a very strong level of prioritization which has been done. In fact, the study which is done by the Indian Institute of Corporate Social Responsibility gives relatively lower rating for organizations involved, even in individual upliftment, such as gender equality within the country, within India, and that's getting impacted. Okay, so let me quickly look at the role of DMOs, and I'll just show you a small video looking at the role of DMOs here. This was a video which I shot recently. I don't know if you can hear the sound, but if you can't, it's less noise pollution. This is the Baga beach. And you can see tourists enjoying it.
This is my favorite beach in Goa, Dayanand.
Yeah.
It has not changed at all. It has not.
No, you will see what has changed now,
Yeah.
Carlos. This was not there when you came. Can you see the beach beds?
Yes, of course.
They are within 50 meters of the high tide line.
Things have not changed that much. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just making these comments because since we do not have sound in this way, we can illustrate with sounds, I would say, the picture. What about the cows? You used to have many cows on the beach?
No, now they don't have them.
Not anymore.
Earlier they used to be. There are too many people around now, Carlos, for the cows to come there.
Yeah.
So just to give you an idea, you might be thinking this is pre-pandemic. This was on 13th of February 2021, a month before the second wave hit India. You can look at the number of people, you can look at the kind of relatively I care two hoots attitude, but also, let me tell you, from January onwards, the industry, the tourism industry in Goa picked up very, very well. We had 85% occupation in the hotel industry, 85% occupancy levels, which were almost pre-pandemic levels. And the interesting thing was, which probably put me onto something called as post-pandemic or pandemic tourism, is we have guests who arrive from neighboring states which are badly hit by tourism to seek solace in Goa. They have stayed here for 15 days, 3 weeks in some cases, whereas the average stay is just hardly 4 days for domestic tourists. So that's another part of it. And you can see the role of DMOs here in controlling the pandemic related to tourism, or controlling tourism in the area of pandemic is relatively low. I'll just end my presentation here. Sorry for taking
No, it's
10
okay.
minutes more.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Obrigado.
Dimitris, do you want to continue, Dimitris?
Yes, I'll be happy to. Thank you very much, Daniel. Fantastic presentation and showing us a whole range of things. I think the world is looking to India right now, and we are praying for the quick recovery and the health of people, because we are all related, and what's happening in India, it's actually relating to us. Great pleasure to introduce Zilia Breda, who is assistant professor at the University of Aveiro. Zilia has been doing a lot of different research, and she is known for her internationalization research and the different kind of areas that she is researching. She's going to talk to us about Bitcoins today and link them with sustainability, which is a very innovative. It's a very innovative way of looking at that. And I cannot wait to hear Zilia talking about these things. Zilia, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dimitris. My computer is a little bit slow, so I will need some time to start presentation. I will share the screen. Try. And please let me know when the screen is on.
Yeah, it's taking some time. You should ask your director to buy a new computer.
For a better computer.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's a bit stingy, but anyway.
I think a computer has just been ordered, Zilia, and it's on its way to your house.
Yes, definitely. I'm going to email Sonia and she will order a computer immediately. Sometimes it takes time. Don't worry.
I'm so sorry for this.
Okay.
You see, you should have done the presentation 1 week before, and you would have had the computer already.
That is a good one. That is a very good one.
I should have recorded it.
Yay!
We can
see your
it
slides,
now.
Zilia.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So again, good morning, everybody. Firstly, I would like to say that it's an honor to be part of this panel of distinguished speakers. Secondly, I must confess that I was, and actually I still am, very anxious and nervous with this presentation. Not only because the previous presentation set the bar very high, but also because I was very undecided on what topic to choose from. And a friend of mine I would like to thank very much for making me think out of the box, challenged me to step out of my comfort zone, and I accept the challenge. So although I find technology fascinating, I'm not an expert on it, nor I aspire to be. Therefore, what I'm sharing today with you is more a reflection about blockchain and its potential impact on tourism industry, not aiming to provide specific answers, but rather to provide some food for thought. So it's not new that technology is changing the world as we know it. In these 2 last years, we have experienced a major shift in business practices. And although we are living in certain times, it has surely been one of the main drivers to digitalization, having a profound impact in many aspects of our lives, but also creating new opportunities for businesses. The tourism industry still has a long way to go in terms of technological transformation, innovation, and also devising new avenues to sustain its growth in the future. Therefore, the implementation of blockchain could be an opportunity to tackle. So the slides are taking a little bit to change. And blockchain is as I say, technology is very important for the tourism sector, and especially also blockchain, which primarily received significant attention in finance, especially in finance, because of the new technological innovations in the form of the crypto assets, such as Bitcoin, which is the most known in the world. But blockchain technology goes far beyond it. I'm not sure where we are in the slides. I think they are a little bit slow. So there's a lot of photos and images. So I'm sorry for taking a little bit to change. So basically, what is blockchain? And I hope this next slide or the next slides open, especially the video that I brought for you. So a short video that explains a little bit better what is blockchain. So basically, just this image illustrates is a distributed database that is made up of a list of transaction bundles called blocks that are attached to each other. Under normal circumstances, these blocks cannot be modified once they are accepted as part of the total chain in a non-centralized procedure. So it's very important, these aspects. So it's not possible to change. Everything is recorded as a new block as part of the network. So this new video it helps better understand the concept, which is a little bit complex. This video provides an overview of blockchain technology and how it works, what can be done with it, and also the main advantages. So let's see if it works. Fingers crossed.
Blockchain is one of the biggest buzzwords today. It is considered one of the most promising emerging technologies, a technology that has the potential to transform business as we know it. But what is blockchain? Simply explained, blockchain is a database or digital ledger of transactions. But this database is different from traditional databases as we know them. In a traditional database, data is stored on a centralized server with a single authority empowered to change or delete the data. In blockchain, the data is shared across a network of computers that all run on a special software that ensures all data remains identical. That's not all. Data is secured using cryptography and can only be changed by people authorized to do so. Before we delve further into how blockchain technology works, let's start by understanding what a block is. A block is a piece of information that is made up of data. The block contains a timestamp, which is used to create what is called the hash of the block. The block also has the hash of the previous block. There are various kinds of data that can be stored in a block. The data can be related to medical records, election information, smart contracts, or land records. The hash is the unique identity of a block, much like the fingerprint of a human being. Every block also contains the hash of the previous block. This is what creates a chain of interconnected blocks and gives this technology its name. Every time a new block is added, a timestamp is added to all the transactions.
So the video goes on, but I think the main part is presented. So basically the major changes that also was mentioned in the video of blockchain are disintermediation. So there is no need of a central authority due to the peer-to-peer nature of the network. The use of public key cryptography also provides a high degree of confidence and security. The network nature also provides more resilient system. Blockchain can also facilitate greater autonomous actions, such as smart contracts that I'm going to mention later on, increase efficiency and also accuracy. The data on the network are connected to preceding data, which means that any attempt to change data requires significant adjustments to multiple areas. With no third parties needed to be involved in the transaction, greater trust is possible and parties can deal directly with one another. Costs can also be cut due to the third party removal, and also transactions on the blockchain network can be traced to authenticate their origin and depth. In the context of tourism, there has been little discussion in the literature on the application of blockchain technology and its use for the overall business operations. In the field of medical tourism has been the field of medical tourism has been the first area where the implementation of these technologies has been investigated in more detail. It is, however, possible to identify potential areas of the adoption and also implementation of blockchain technology in this sector, representing also avenues for future research. So in terms of the first point, secure traceable payments in crypto assets. So cryptocurrencies based on blockchain technology easily allow interchange of money without the need of third parties, as I mentioned before, enabling the emergence of new forms of customer-to-customer transaction for tourism products. And we have the experience of the use of Bitcoin already in online travel product shopping, for instance, Expedia. Also, the TUI group already adopt blockchain technology in its booking, reservation, and payments systems. Other examples in the tourism industry that accept Bitcoin as a payment include cheap air, one-shot hotels, and Webjet. Also, international travelers benefit from having a unified cashless and contactless payment system without the need of carrying foreign currency and the physical cash. Regarding the tracking and service customization, so establishing a blockchain-based supply chain system, especially for the gastronomy, the food sector industry, would be a great opportunity. One of the biggest advantages is the tracking of the food supply at each stage of its journey until it reaches the final customer, which is very relevant in terms of sustainability. Other possible applications can be found in the airline industry in tracking luggage, for instance. The identification services are important for the travel industry, and blockchain could potentially store this information. For instance, it has the capacity to drastically reduce check-in times or queues in airports by the use of fingerprints and retina scans, which can replace physical documents. This could alleviate identity theft and the easy verification of documents. Also relevant nowadays in terms of the health passport, as already introduced in some countries. So this COVID, the vaccines, and all the information relevant could be easily be introduced by the blockchain system. The blockchain technology can also lead to the second wave of disintermediation in the tourism industry, could possibly eliminating or removing these intermediaries that also were responsible for the first wave, the online travel agencies and also the global destination systems. We already have some examples of online travel platforms such as Invtur and also hotel P2P. They can also eliminate or at least reduce the role of the intermediaries, OTAs and GDSs in their market power, linking directly consumers to suppliers. This also means that inventory management can be improved by using these blockchain-based systems in terms of showing real-time inventory that, for instance, accommodation establishments have, and also the prices, which can be shared by stakeholders. Blockchain can also assist with loyalty programs. For instance, Loyal is a company that has created this, that was created specifically for this purpose, and aims to solve the problem of accumulating enough points for customers. They can use the points in any organization that is part of the blockchain. Smart contracts can be created between, for instance, hotels and travel agencies on blockchain, and of course can increase payment time between partners and help to sell more rooms due to better real-time information. In addition, smart contracts can also facilitate the supply chain in restaurants, for instance, by tracking orders, supplies. So we have different examples. The TUI group, as I mentioned before, already developed this blockchain-based system called Bed Swap Project. Blockchain technology can also advance companies' content delivery, for instance, room allocations and distribution via online bookings, customer and inventory data storage, and other back-office functionalities. In terms of the ratings review systems, nowadays the trustworthiness of online reviews is sometimes questioned, since centralized systems can be manipulated. In order to have fair online reviews, a common review and dating system could provide individuals with traceable identities. Of course, in the blockchain, it wouldn't be possible to identify the person identity if it was not revealed, so it could be easily solve the problem of manipulation. Moreover, blockchain can also improve the coordination between stakeholders. For instance, a passenger that doesn't do the check-in for the flight, this can trigger an update to the inventory of the hotel and also the rental company. So it immediately can change the system. So with the collaboration existing in the network. And lastly, another area of research that relates to blockchain technology lies in the development of smart cities, which are closely related to smart tourism and tourism destinations. So it is evident that technology is critical for a destination to become smart, and Professor Dimitris Bohal has already mentioned this a lot in the presentation. Trust is plays an important role in overcoming the perception of uncertainty and risk when using different forms of technology in the destinations to collect, analyze, and also share the data. And in addition to security, also the privacy aspect is a very relevant issue. Which data is shared to whom, with what purposes. So all these questions are relevant. In this case, it is very important to protect users of sharing services from fraud, liability, and other unskilled service providers. And in this regard, smart contracts have the potential to overcome these identified problems. The economic system, which is built on blockchain technology, runs without people, thus making a transaction trust-free. So the blockchain technology provides an alternative to eliminate intermediaries, thereby lowering operational costs and also increasing efficiency. Basically, a smart contract involves the establishment of terms between two parties being written using a computer code which controls its execution. Transactions are trackable and irreversible. This allows predicting market uncertainties and trends, which are particularly important for crisis management. So smart contracts are important to ensure transparency and trust, reduce bureaucracy, eliminate communication problems, enhance performance and outcomes. It is also important to help manage and control public investment, ensuring better use of resources. And particularly for the hospitality industry, smart check-in and check-out and smart stay can be enhanced. Smart contracts can also ensure smart pricing and smart budgeting. So the existing technology at the destinations already mentioned in the previous presentation, especially by Professor Dimitrios, can monitor the tourist activities throughout the stay at the destination, and can be using the smart contracts attribute different prices according to the behavior of tourists. For instance, Tanya mentioned, I think it was Sarah, mentioned that the tourists take a long time in the shower and it triggered the fire alarms because of the steam. So if one tourist wastes more water in the shower, she or he has to pay more because produce more variable costs. So it automatically, these smart contracts can change and adjust prices according to the behavior of tourists. This is very important for sustainability. We're talking about environmental sustainability. This principle also applies to destination taxes, for instance, and also to the internal costs of the company. So existing technology can do that. So looking into a not so distant future, brain-computer interface should also be considered in the equation. There are already advancements in this direction, and it can have a huge impact or potential to introduce major disruption for businesses, especially in tourism. I'm going to show also another video, short one as well, so that you can see already these examples of things that can be done with the brain interface, computer interface. And it's already in practice. Of course, it's not mass produced and introduced in the business, but it can be. So it has a lot of potential for also the tourism sector.
Our nervous system is how we communicate with the world. It allows us to taste, see, hear, smell, and touch. Neural interfaces are devices that interact with our nervous system. They can be placed on the inside or outside of the brain or body, and can restore or even change what we're able to do. Early neural interfaces, such as cochlear implants and devices to treat hearing loss, first emerged in the 1960s.
Daddy loves you. Daddy loves you. Daddy.
Yes, here.
Can you hear Daddy?
Deep brain stimulation to treat tremors in Parkinson's disease was first approved in the US in 1997. And more recently, experimental treatments have emerged which aim to allow people with paralysis to walk again.
They could even take a few steps over ground, hands-free. For me, seeing this recovery was amazing.
With increased investment and advances in neuroscience and computing, the technology is being miniaturized and becoming more powerful. In the future, neural interfaces could replace some pharmaceutical treatments, meaning that your prescription could be for a neural interface rather than a drug. You may be able to buy neural interfaces to train your brain, to improve your concentration or your memory, and they may allow you to perform better or sleep easier. However, the most extraordinary potential uses of neural interfaces concern how humans interact with technology. These include typing using just our thoughts, the truly remote control of robotics, allowing surgery to be performed from anywhere on the planet, and games played using only the mind that are able to adapt and respond to players' mood and mental state. In the future, it may even be possible to use this technology to communicate sensory experiences. You could send a loved one a neural postcard when on holiday. But the use of neural interfaces also raises some critical ethical questions. Neural data, gathered from the brain and body, may be considered more private than data collected from smartphones and other devices. This neural data could be harvested for information about someone's emotions or moods. And using neural interfaces could provide people with abilities that exceed the majority of the population. If only accessible for some, they may lead to a more divided society. Humans have always innovated by using our brains to create new technologies. With neural interfaces, we're now turning that process inside out, using new technologies to transform our brains. These technologies might challenge the very essence of what it is to be human. Working out how, and even if we want to use them, requires an open and inclusive debate, involving many voices and all sectors of society.
So this brain-computer interface, for instance, in terms of the tourism industry, eliminates completely intermediation. So people can think about one service, it automatically connects with that service and reservation is done, and it's not necessary any intermediation. Also, the destination management organizations nowadays, or not nowadays, but with this technology, can have more time in monitoring the activity. So it allows to gather more data that is open. So this blockchain technology as open databases, and this information can be used for research, for better understanding the tourism industry at a particular destination. So it's also important to think about the jobs. So as if it eliminates intermediation, so probably some jobs will be lost, but how can we, of course, create new opportunities for people for employment in the tourism sector, and also thinking about education, how to create training programs related to these areas that are more keen and of course related to this new reality. So it's very important to think about these new technologies. They are not implemented yet, but could be in the future, and how it will impact the tourism sector and also the sustainability. So in terms of conclusion, blockchain is having an emerging role in sustainability as well by helping foster collaboration between consumers and also producers, by assisting people in adopting more sustainable lifestyles, as I mentioned before, and by helping companies to improve their sourcing and recycling practices. Sorry. I clicked. Sooner than expected. So another major benefit of blockchain technology is that it can ensure transparency, as mentioned. This means that companies claims of being resource positive and also producing impacts, positive impacts, or reducing negative impacts can be counter-checked and verified. Aside from transparency, the technology also ensures traceability. This facilitates fast and easy provenance of items, distinguish authentic products from fake ones, and also identify impacts on resources and also fair work practices. Consumers can thus have adequate information about truly sustainable products and able to make informed choices. And finally, blockchain helps companies to optimize processes, come up with innovations, and increase productivity. This results in reduced operating costs, and more importantly, reductions in waste. And this can also add the conservation of resources. So blockchain can really have an important role in the sustainable development of the tourism sector, at least from what I could tell from the research that I did. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward for your comments and questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Zelia. Very, very nice presentation. I was not aware that you were so linked with technology nowadays. I mean, this department is becoming so big that we are working nowadays at different areas. So we have a number of questions here. What I would like to suggest is we can bring a couple of questions, and there is one which is directed both to Dimitrios, to Tanya, and also to Zelia, which is how can researchers, businesses, and destinations use the technology in order to provide sustainability and attain the sustainable development goals? I suppose that this is clearly an excellent question. And since two of you were looking at tourism, were approaching in your presentations things related to smart tourism. And on the other side, Tanya was approaching this from the supply side, I would say, from an economic point of view. So who would like to start? Tanya? Ladies first.
Thank you very much. I think this is more question actually for the Dimitrios, but I just would like to add something that there was no time to mention. What I see, the digitalization, the green technology has been very much promoted by the European Union and by all the institutions as a way to sustainability. And it has went so far that they call it green technology, and they claim that the investment in the green technology is the way forward to the more sustainable future. And then along the way, the ICT has become a synonym for a green transformation. This is what I see. But what I see is also that technology can also be used for unsustainable future. So this is my remark, and maybe even more question for Dimitrios. So how will we assure that the technology and everything, okay, smart cities, it is by definition, it means this sustainable cities. Although I did go through some of your presentations, Dimitrios, you don't really elaborate on this issue. Sometimes you do mention. So how are we going to assure that there is not going to be another gap? Or I would say missed expectations on our transition into a more sustainable world with the technology.
All right, Dimitrios, would like to say something on this? And then I will ask Zelia precisely the same question.
Thank you, Tanya. First of all, the question is $1 million question, so it requires 5 or 6 PhDs, and then you've got Tanya on top, making it even more complex. Thank you. That's fantastic. I think Tanya is absolutely right, and I think the issue is technology will enable us, number one, to register the resources and their vulnerability. You'll be surprised how many destinations do not know the resources they've got. What is the current capacity per resource, per time of year? So in Greece, for example, there is Zante Island that has got the careta turtles. This is very different. It's an area where it has got different current capacity in different periods of time. So you really need to look into per destination, per resource, per vulnerability, per capacity, per square meter, per minute, effectively. So once you have actually identified all of those areas, then you have got measurable objectives and you've got measurable indicators that you need to look into how you can manage this resource in a sustainable way. What technology enables us to do is to bring the different players together, and it enables us to understand the vulnerabilities and take restrictions, if you like, in particular places for particular times. So you can say to people, I'm going to close this island for 3 months for a particular reason, for the resources to regenerate and do things in a way that the nature can come back into recovery mode. And equally, what you can do once you've done that, you can substitute things. You can say to people, look, do not go to this place right now because there are far too many people and you're not going to have a good experience, but go to this place that we know that it's not very busy, and you facilitate that. I think quite often people are looking to technology for solutions, but the technology is actually the vehicle to the solution. You really need strategic management, strategic marketing, and you need people to understand what they are trying to achieve. One of the big problems with sustainability is that we have always advertised the same things. So we advertise the Eiffel Tower, we advertise the iconic kind of things that create honeypots. So people are going to the honeypots. I'll go to Venice and I'll go straight to Piazza San Marco. But they don't talk about Vettere. They don't talk about some of the other places that they can spread the activity. So let's go back. Technology is giving us the smart tools to study the resource and to make the strategic planning, Carlos, planning solutions using the smart technologies and engaging people in different ways. And those people may be institutional players and stakeholders like tour operators, travel agents, or it may be consumers. Or we may actually segment the consumers and say, we are not going to allow people from a particular nationality to go to a place because the resource is actually challenged by the behavior of this nationality. But we may allow people from a different nationality to go to this resource. Okay, we need to be a little bit sensitive on all these things, but it gives us the possibility to actually do these things. And the technology, as I say, is the vehicle to get us to strategic management, marketing, and planning. And it's a matter of strategic management and marketing and planning that's what we need to address first.
Brilliant. Let me also make a point here, which is also, it seems to me that it's also important. Dimitris, you have been talking about data mining, which is, of course, critical for all this. And in Tanya's presentation, she was talking about the suppliers. She was talking about the business. So one of the things that came immediately to my mind is, of course, that if we start talking about all this data, the question that has to be asked is, from where are we going to get this data? Because, I mean, the smart tourism is important, provided that we use accurate data. So when it comes to the heart of the tourism sector, we are talking about accommodation, we are talking about restaurants, we are talking about museums, recreation, theme parks, and so on. And in a number of situations, these businesses are not willing to share this information. So the question is, Dimitrios and Tanya and now Zelia as well, how can we bring all these companies, you know, effectively together in order to create this new kind of tourism observatories? Because most of the tourism observatories, yeah, you tell us.
This is simple in the way that, you know, and especially in some countries like Portugal, you are very organized. We cannot buy a sandwich without the tax system know that the transactions is taking place. And every time I come to Portugal, I'm surprised how efficient the whole system is. So you go, if the government and the people who are responsible for the resources put their mind to it, we start collecting data from all kinds of things. We've got cameras everywhere. We've got sensors everywhere. Each transaction that's happening every time we buy a sandwich or a drink in Portugal, or we go to a restaurant, the transaction is made immediately and it is live. So we have the data. What we don't have, and actually it's not that we are looking to the privacy of people, it's not that we are looking to, look into people's behavior. We just need to know where people go, when and why. And we've got all the data in the world from the social media, in terms of Facebook, in terms of Instagram. We've got all the data of the world from Google. We've got all the data of the world from a range of different kind of sources. The issue is then how do we collect the data in real time? And this is what I call nowness early on. And how do we analyze the data in real time? Not because we know where Rui is and what he's doing, but we need to know how many people are right now in a square, or they are there, and what's going to happen next, and what kind of needs do they have? Do they have needs for, I don't know, toilets? Do they have a needs for security and safety? Do they have got needs for food and drink? How can we serve these people? So once we've collected all the data exists, but we need the strategic will and the political will to actually analyze these things. And we can do data mining, we can have artificial intelligence doing data mining to actually understand the situation in every place. And by doing that, we kind of make decisions. So then the question is, what decisions do you make? We understand what's happening in each situation. We forecast and we predict what's happening in each situation, and we start taking measures. So we can say, so many people can go to the square, and if we reach the capacity, we will tell people to go somewhere else. Because of historical data, we know also what's the pattern. So if it's a Easter weekend, things are going to happen in a particular way. I remember once I was in Aveiro, and we went to this nice church that people were throwing the dry bread. I don't remember what you call it.
San Gonçalo. Igreja de San Gonçalo.
Perfect. On that particular time, on that particular moment, which happens once a year, this place is reaching capacity. But we know that, and we know that every year that place is going to need extra services. We can forecast that. So you kind of start going to a loop and forecast, and in terms of you being proactive and reactive at the same time. And then what you do is you bring the services that you need in that particular place.
Brilliant. Tanya, would you like to say something because you're raising your hand?
I agree very much what Dimitrios is saying about that. Data is here, we can collect it, we can use it, and this data is not only numbers, it's also opinions, it's also soft social data, what really matters, and then we can go on. I also very much agree, I have listened carefully, you have mentioned the political dimension of this process, and you have mentioned it in your presentation, and I think that is the problem. There might be the problem or the challenge in the future that we will be dealing with. For example, the World Travel and Tourism Council was measuring the over-risk tourism in more than 60 destinations worldwide, also with the soft data I was talking about. And they were using TripAdvisor data about the customer satisfaction, measuring the comments on by the consumers, by the visitors, about the attractions in the city. So this was the measure, development, and the data gathered. I think that in the meantime, when they have created this methodology and approach, I don't think, Dimitrios, but I have been just in one European project, we have this issue, these data are not for free anymore, you can get it, but you have to pay because it is a private company that is having this data. The mobile data on tourism flows that can help us to manage the visitor flows in this case, and is a wonderful, I would say, idea application for the tourism, are not for free anymore either. And this is something that we will really have to be addressed. But I do agree, yes, technology, if properly used, and I also do believe that European Union, when it's saying the green technology or the green innovation with the technology, that this potential has been recognized. The question was more about how we will assure this, but nevertheless, going back to this, yes, I do agree, but there is going to be an issue with gathering how we are going to collect this data. And Zelia has also addressed this question, how the data will be used and also how they will be gathered, if they are more personal or protected or whatever.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. We can have a comment from Zelia and also from Diane, because Diane also has something to say about this. Zelia, would you like to say first, because it's about technology?
Yes, as Tani mentioned, in fact, using blockchain technology can solve some of these issues of the private data, and now companies are selling this data. And using blockchain, it is a public network where it is registered. It's not visible who is whom, so there is no issue about the privacy. So can be used also for destination management organizations to monitor the destination, also for research purposes. So it can, let's say, that can overcome some of these difficulties that we are facing nowadays. As Dimitrios mentioned, we have a lot of data, but sometimes you cannot use it. When you can monitor a lot of things in the destination, now linking with the sustainability, as I mentioned, if you use something in the room, in the minibar, or if you use the towels and more water, everything can be monitored, and it can be, of course, be used to track the behavior of the tourists, and of course, let us know what is the most profile that we, or the most used profile for our destination, or the profile for the tourist for the destination.
Thank you very much. Diana, we have several questions for you, but I would say that we can bring them together, and I would summarize them in two things. One is clearly about the way you are improving, the planning and management of Goa. I remember that you used to have a plan, and in the meantime, this plan has been updated, and I wonder how things like technology and the sustainable development goals have been brought into the new plan. Would you like to say something on that?
Yeah, I was just two quick reactions which I had. What struck me when you mentioned
I would
museums,
like to ask Gilberto only to change, since Diana does not have a camera, what we can do is to change the format, please. Yes, Diana, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned museums as one of the areas when you were mentioning about technology, and it brought back some memories for me when I visited the Museum of Modern Art in Porto. Because I was not keen and interested, I just asked the person there at the desk as to which are the ones which are mostly watched, which are the exhibits which are mostly watched. And he just guided me so that I could complete the entire museum in a short span of time. That is what struck me, that every exhibit could probably be having a sensor which can sense how many people actually have viewed it, how much time they spent out on that. And this data is something which the museums can collect for better museum management and for sustainability, as we were speaking. Because I remember in Coimbra, in the university, in the law university, you're not supposed to take photographs, right, with flash. So that's another area where we start looking at trying to sustain whatever exhibits we have and see that they are not damaged. This is one part. Second part was, we were in talk with IBM at Goa when we were talking about this particular plan, to ensure that the destination management organization designs an app which can identify the tourist where he or she is, and then direct them effectively, as what Dimitrios was saying, that if there is something which is crowded here, you can probably go to some other area, or giving them idea about their interests, which are the kind of attractions which would interest them based on their history, either from data which is got from Facebook or data which is got from other sources which is already there. Which is where probably Zelia's blockchain associated with an individual, when he or she makes a transaction for a tourism visit, or when he or she makes a transaction for a hotel booking, would then bring on all the blockchains which are interconnected to show what exactly are the kind of preferences which he or she has. And then this particular app would then direct that tourist to issues or areas where he or she is closely associated with. So this was something which, unfortunately, the deal with IBM went down because of some political interferences. But otherwise, it would have been, they were willing to give us, hardware support, like cameras, which Dimitrios was talking about, at the borders, at different installations, public installations which are there, and organizations which are associated with tourism, attractions, the beach part. In fact, the beach part is something which this PhD student of mine is doing her paper on. It's a very interesting area for management of beaches, effective management. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so thank you very much for your questions. We have a number of questions here from the panel, from people following us on YouTube. However, it's 12:30 and we want to stay within the schedule because we have parallel sessions at 2 p.m. in Lisbon, London time. So just to close this session, let me thank our panel, Dimitrios Bohalis, Sarah Dolikar, Tanya, Dayanand, and Zelia. So thank you very much, you all, for coming. Let me also thank the organizing committee, Filipa, Rui, Mariana, and to all the people that has been following us on YouTube. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. It has been a great pleasure. And right in the afternoon, again, we are going to have a number of very nice parallel sessions. In case you do not have the links, please go to the website and we have the program there, and you also have all the links to the sessions. And then later in the end, it's going to be around 5, I don't remember very well. We are going to have a closing session. This closing session is going to be on Zoom, which will allow all the intervenants to speak in case you want to come and in case you want to have a say and comment on the way this conference has been organized. So thank you very much indeed for coming, for joining us. It has been a pleasure, and see you at 2 p.m. Bye. And thank you very much, Gilberto. I forgot, Gilberto has been behind the scenes all the time.
No problem.
Yesterday, I did not mention his name, but I would like to say, look at the view. Gilberto was on the beach. Gilberto, thank you very much.
Not the beach, the desert.
On the desert, all right.
It's the desert.
Yes, it's the desert. So Gilberto, thank you very much. The information technology department in the university is brilliant. These guys have been helping and supporting us. Well, the roots of the University of Aveiro go back to 1973, when we created a department of electronics and telecommunications. By that time, it was really advanced because, I mean, the common programs were on electrical engineering. So we have a number of companies in Aveiro, like Nokia, Siemens, and so on. And these guys, they do a very good job. So Gilberto, thank you very much for all the support. And again, see you at 2 p.m. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Nice connecting with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.